Yeah. And I don't trust anybody that trains as a sniper.
I can actually record you this time. You're not dark.
I'm not dark.
I love it.
My aura has changed.
It has.
Yeah, now that we're going to do, rather than a self-defense panel on No Means No, we're going to talk about ninja weapons of death. And now I'm pleasant and have a bright, flowery aura. That doesn't seem wrong at all.
It's on them.
You're more.
I kind of like having a table right there. I'm gonna...
You're playing like a straight up smell.
This bag is like my scenes from a hat bag. Does anybody watch?
Are you gonna bring
Who's
the bunny
Line?
out?
This is one of my favorite shows. Or it used to be. It kind of, they stopped doing it and then they started it again and it wasn't as funny and didn't work.
I was about to say, I don't think you did it anymore.
And see, that's new. I'm talking 5 to 10 years ago when it was in its peak, when Drew Carey was actually almost kind of funny. Adding to it with Wayne Brady and Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery and the different people they brought in. Some of them were just amazing and some of them were terrible. And they couldn't do improv. And yeah, I don't know what the deal was with Robin Williams. Like, he's only funny on his own thing. Do you know what I mean? You got those guys that can chime in and they're perfect and they can adapt to their circumstances. And then you have the guys that they're funny, but only in their own world. Don't take me out of my world because then I don't fit in. There was a comedian named Mitch Hedberg that was that way. He passed away 5 or 6 years ago from drugs because all great comedians are drug addicts. Sam Kinison. But Mitch Hedberg was amazing. But if you listen to him, he wasn't great at one-liners because they just kind of seemed weird. But if you watch one of his shows, in 5 minutes he had you pulled into his world, which was an amazing place. I mean, his best comedy skit thing ever. He said, my apartment is infested with koala bears. It's the cutest infestation ever. I turn on the lights, koala bears scatter, and I don't want them to. I mean, that just sounds stupid. But if he's 15 minutes into his thing, and by then you're hooked, and whatever drug he's on, you're taking too. And just the idea of coming home to an apartment, turning on the lights, and having koala bears sliding under the couch and ducking into a closet and stuff is just like, oh, come here, let me feed you a leaf. And it's like, it worked. I'm now hooked. This has very little to do with ninja weapons of death, but they did use mind-altering drugs. Stephen Wright is another one of those guys that you get into his mindset because
I call him Mr. Hyper.
he had that one. He was doing them all, and he was reliving something from the man. He's like, one time about 6 years ago, no, it was yesterday. I'm like, I've reached that age where I have that problem. It's like, hey, I haven't seen you for a couple months, and you're like, it was 2011. Like, seems like it was just a month ago. And then things that happened here at the con yesterday, I'm thinking, this was 7 years ago at this convention. No, that was yesterday during cards. I can't believe you're still here. I saw you run outside to a big pickup truck, black, and get money. I don't know how you do that. I'm going to start running out into traffic and saying, hey. And I thought you were asking for $5. And I wasn't actually stalking you. We were walking back from Subway, and I saw you come running out because that truck almost ran me over. So if that was your dad, I want to talk to him. But I thought you were asking for $5, and then you ran off, and we walked around and came through, and we're going down the hallway, and you were at the ATM machine. You asked for $5 and your parents gave you an ATM card instead? That's trusting. I don't think you can actually get $5 at a time out of an ATM machine, can you? Isn't it like multiples of 20?
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Well,
No clue, never did it.
I had to get a Foxtail for a friend because she forgot about it.
A what? A
Foxtail.
fox? Oh, a foxtail.
So I didn't, I got nothing for myself.
Was that for a girl?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. That's better than getting something for yourself. Actually, that's kind of the same. Never mind. Did I say that out loud?
No.
Yes.
Okay, good. As long as I didn't say it out loud. If you inferred it because I meant it that way. then you're sick and worked all on your own. It's not my fault.
Never claimed to be anything but.
I know. And there's my secret ninja back guy over there. Look, a Batman shirt kind of gives you away as a ninja. I'm Batman. Yes, you're a ninja.
You got the one of each over here again.
I know, but you guys at least separated.
Just a little. I guess the
She's
ninja
trying
wants
to
to
claim
sit by
she's normal
himself.
today.
This is the expert weapon. I always love these, the foam ones. I'm a martial arts expert. I use these. Like, really, they're foam. You should try the real one. Those are dangerous. Then you're not an expert. These are the ones I give my wife, though. Sean, you've met my wife, right? She's normally here. My wife is one of the most dangerous people on the planet with a sword, and she's an NRA shooting instructor. And she's really good with handguns and shotguns. If you give her a flexible weapon like this, these are hers because every time she tries to use these, she hits herself. She is dangerous.
So she's not a hand-to-hand combat expert.
Oh no, she's a full contact kickboxing instructor. And she teaches the empty hand stuff. I lose more big martial arts students to her at the dojo. They quit training because we get football players that come in. We had a guy from Florida A&M. His name was Tree. He was 6'7", he weighed 280 pounds, he had 0 body fat. And he showed up all the time and trained in those really tight shorts that are split on the side. Like he hulked out and just stayed that way. And the tank tops, and we're doing moves and he's just picking people up when they're supposed to be doing the wrist lock thing. He just, "Rah!" And my wife was being helpful, so she runs over to, let me show you how to do this. So she got around and had him like this, and he's there in front of the whole class doing, that's basically the Atlas pose. She's like, okay, now, and she's just holding his wrist. If he resists, go ahead. And so he tensed, and he was popping, you know how Arnold Schwarzenegger has the veins in the arms that are bigger than most people's biceps? He is ripped out, that just makes it easier. And she goes, wham! And body slammed him on the ground enough that it knocked the wind out of him. And the girls he was working with went, yay! And Tree shook his head, got up, and went, am I in Florida again? No, you're training here. I said, okay, good. That was really good. And went and sat down. And he never came back. I'm like, this is not the way to do this. We teach Muay Thai kickboxing. That's the kickboxing from Thailand. Knees and elbows are legal. It's the striking platform for mixed martial arts. And so when you throw a roundhouse kick, you don't kick with the ball of the foot. You kick with the shin because it's more destructive and you're less likely to hurt yourself. So we get those big side kick shields they use in Taekwondo and hold here sideways to take the side kick. Put them on the side of the leg so people can develop power kicking into that big shield. And you learn to kind of give with it a little bit and take it. She was holding for a football player, nose tackle, ended up playing for Simpson College. And he's kicking and she's mocking him. Because he was a tool. Most 18 to 25-year-old, 18 to 60-year-old men are tools anyway. But he was a jock, so he's kicking and she's going, come on. Kick me. My 12-year-old stepdaughter kicks harder than you. And so he's gotten to the point where it's like weightlifters. He's just screaming and kicking, and she's like, that's better, bring it. I'm like, all right, switch. They're handing the pads over, and my wife smiles and hands him the targets while we're still dating. And I'm like, Jill, be nice. And the guy's like, whatever. And he set his weight into it like he was part of a shield wall. Put all his weight on that leg, put the side kick shield there, and I'm like, don't hold like that. And Jill's like, shh. She's much meaner than I am. I'm like, all right, kick. And she went, wham, and kicked his legs clear out from underneath him. And he fell down in a heap and landed on his face. He started crying. Like, that's not the tough football player attitude. I mean, there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in football. And this is the woman who broke my nose. in bed.
Remember that?
We weren't doing that. Totally like that. It was afterwards. I mean, we were snuggling. You know how when you're in bed and you've got your arm around your lady and, well, you don't, but you get your, and you tuck in, your head's right there, and she'll fall asleep. It's no longer comfortable for you, but you're not moving because you don't poke the bear. The bear is asleep, you don't bother it. So your arm goes numb and you can't move. It's really not comfortable, but she's not. Jill had fallen asleep, thought her head was right there. You know how you kind of nuzzle in and burrow? She'd fallen asleep with her face on the side of my cheek. And she went, nuzzle, and her forehead was right here on the side of my nose, and it went crunch sideways. And you could hear it. You know how in real life sound effects are never like they are in the movies? At 3 o'clock in the morning in a dead silent house, it was exactly like somebody took something and just snapped it. And I sat bolt upright in bed and went, ah! And my kids in the next room immediately start going, la, 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 la. And to this day, they're still not convinced that's all that was happening. And we had a black belt test at our school the next day, sword class. Takes 4.5 years of training to. And so we took the picture. There's the table with all the instructors. There's me in the middle with a bandage across my nose and 2 black eyes, and my wife sitting next to me with a smirk on her face. And we had to send that information into the headquarters. My Japanese instructor, who says he has no sense of humor at all, called us and said, receive paperwork. Hi, Sensei, good. Receive fees. Good, Sensei, I'm glad it was in the same envelope. Receive picture. Uh-oh. What happened Sensei Dan's nose? Why is Mrs. Sensei smiling? I tried to explain that my wife broke my nose cuddling. And when he shipped the stuff back, we got the Menjo. That's the certificate of rank promotion if you're in traditional Japanese martial arts. We got the Menjo, we got the office paperwork, and in between was a big piece of red construction paper. Like, why is there, we've never had construction paper in our envelope. Well, what's up with that? And my wife, she had to have known. She's like, we should call him and ask. So I called him, he was like, Sensei, we got the package. Hi. Got Menjo. Hi. Got paperwork. Hi. Sensei, there's a piece of red construction paper in the envelope. What's that? And he goes, I throw penalty card on Mrs. Sensei. And then he said, you let me know if she keeps beating you up. I will have talk with her. Thanks. Do you remember when I said you could sit wherever you wanted to? I was wrong. I either need you to move to this side or I have to borrow somebody who's sitting over here to be my crash test dummy on about 3 different things. Or can I just use you? You're sitting in the front.
Go for it.
I promise I won't hurt you. My wife's the dangerous one. Did anybody see the Serenity movie from Firefly? The Serenity? Do you remember the assassin? Took the nerve cluster and then left the sword like that. And this is a good death. There's honor in this death. If I have to kill you, that's how it'll work. I'll probably apologize while I do it. If my wife comes after you, she will make your death something epic. They will make stories about it. It'll be a 12-part miniseries. And it will be horrifying. Our demo team, we had 3 demo teams. We had children's, teenage, and adult demo team that traveled all over. My adult demo team people would not do public demonstrations if she was the person performing the techniques, because she hurt all of them. So I would do all the throws because I at least didn't hurt them. And then I'd let her do the throws on me. And she dislocated my shoulder once on stage. My daughter broke my hand. Girls are dangerous. They're violent. I started training because I'm actually, it doesn't seem like it when I'm in front of people because I'm performing. It's my job to make sure you have fun. And so I can just let go of being nervous. But I'm socially awkward. And if you find me at a party when I'm not performing, I'm the guy standing in a corner or sitting in the back with sunglasses and not speaking.
That's me.
That's me. And people think I'm mad or there's something wrong. I don't know what to say. But I thought if I started training in martial arts, because I was terrified of women, always have been. I blame my mom. And I thought if I started training in martial arts, it would give me self-confidence and I wouldn't be as afraid of women. 26 years later, I am more afraid of women now than I was when I started. Because you know what I learned in the dojo? Men, we have a pecking order. We establish our position in the pack, and it's my school. If you can beat me, you teach class. Until you can, do what I tell you to. And we understand that. You're going to do what I say, or I will make you do it. And you're like, got it. You won't do that. You don't care whether I can beat you or not, because I can win the fight and still lose the war. If you get upset, anything goes. And that's what girls are like. They're terrifying. The first day we had sparring in our kickboxing school, I didn't have any people who were instructors yet. It was just me. So I thought it'd be safest to have the girls spar with each other, because, you know, guys are big and mean and tough. And so I had the guys, 2 guys over here, 2 girls over here, and it was light contact kickboxing. We had headgear and chest protectors. It was supposed to be just boxing only for the first round. So I'm running both. I'm like, all right, Hajime. And I'm watching because I figure the guys are the ones who are going to get hurt. But the guys are sparring the way we do when we're not very good at it. We're just starting, we just kind of circle and go. I did a combination. And nobody gets hit. It's the most boring 3 minutes ever. It's like speed dating, just with headgear. It was awful. So I'm watching the guys, and all of a sudden the rest of the students go, oh my God! And I look over, and the 2 girls are locked in Mortal Kombat on the floor, rolling, pulling hair with headgear and gloves on, and kneeing for the groin. I'm like, Mate, stop! Ayame! And they're not listening. I actually had to get between and pick them up because they were small enough. I had to separate. And as soon as I pulled them apart, they both turned their attention on me. And the one on this side kicked me in the groin, and the one on this side turned her head and clamped down. She bit me. I'm like, would you stop it, Jill? It was my girlfriend that bit me. And it was her sister that kicked me in the groin. And then I learned siblings should be separated when they're sparring. You remember sword class? And I made sure that was the first time. Because they're dangerous. And both of them said the same thing. She started it.
Family's fun, aren't they?
Well, this is the same sister that we're doing a boxing drill. If we have anybody that's taken any boxing, you know what a bob and weave is? That's when a person throws and you go underneath. Usually you want to strike to the body. You don't give any chance to throw a strike. You don't let that go. So when they punch, you go under it, make sure you cover, hit them in the stomach, come up, pop over the shoulder and hit them in the jaw. Bob and weave. 5 count tends to go to the left. The 4 count goes this way. Here and up over the top. It's a great combo. We were working that with focus mitts, and I'm holding for Jill's sister. 4. And threw that, and she went underneath, and that straight piston shot that's supposed to go right into the midsection, she hit me full on in the groin. I'm like, oh! What the hell was that? She's like, it's your fault. You're tall. If you would have been regular height, it would have hit you right in the... I'm like, really? All right, fine. Michael, come here. And I called my teenage son, who was completely oblivious and missed all of it. Said, come over here and hold for her. Hi, Sensei, because he's my son. Grabs the focus mitts. He's in there. 4, throws that, and she ducks underneath and just plasters him straight on in the groin and drops him. First and only time I remember my son ever getting knocked down for the count. And he's laying there, and I'm looking at Bree, and she's like, what? It's a habit now. I had 2 cops that stopped training because we had a 55-year-old grandmother who's an editor for a publishing company. And she's really sweet, she's very nice, and she didn't think her techniques were very strong for the joint lock stuff. And she was over-cranking every class on the guys. And the 2 cops who joined our dojo because they were in the weightlifting place next door. It's serious. They stopped training because she was hurting their wrists so much. They worked nights, so they'd leave training at 9:30 at night, and then they were on duty at 11. They didn't think they could do their jobs effectively because she was hurt. And I talked to her about it. And Charlotte, you got to stop hurting the boys. They're not going to train. She's like, well, they're not very tough then, are they? You're costing me money. Oh. So now if you are a girl and you catch me in the hallway and say hi, if I flinch first and then go, oh, hi, how you doing? Do you want a hug? Now you know why. It's a lifelong pattern of being beaten up and being afraid of girls. Because you're going to make that same sweet little smile, and that's so cute, while you hurt me. And I have learned that. I trained guys in kickboxing at the University of Iowa Fieldhouse for 4 years. Never had a girl student before. And it was serious, grunting and first 2 girls that started training, it's because their uncle thought they needed self-defense lessons for college. I brought them in for kickboxing and something new happened. We're doing focus mitt drills and I would hear, bam, 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 giggle. Bam, giggle, snicker. Bam, bam, snort. I never had giggling in kickboxing before. And now it's a thing, and that's just even more scary to me. Oh. So we're going to talk about ninja weapons of death, and you've already discovered the biggest ninja weapon of death is the female form. They're extra scary. All I can say is, while you might kill me, it's usually worth it. Feudal Japan was a caste system. What that means is, if Grandpa was a samurai, your dad was a samurai, you're a samurai, your child is going to be samurai, whether he has inclination or skill or not. Even if he wants to be a dentist, he's going to be a samurai. Sorry, I went Rudolph. Which elf was that?
Hermes.
Nerd.
Takes one to know one.
I know, I made the reference. I have that DVD. I almost feel like it's cheating. I still only watch it during Christmas because it just seems weird to put in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in July.
I have that Christmas in July special.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, caste system. It meant that whatever social status you had, your family was going to continue to have. That worked great for the samurai. The samurai were the nobility in feudal Japan, and they were in charge. Didn't work so well if your father was a camel dung dealer, because that meant no matter what you want to be, that's your job. One of the things throughout world history that governments have done to maintain status quo, in other words, to keep themselves in power, was to pass laws that prohibited the common people from having the best weapons of war because it limited their ability to overthrow the government. Okay? And I'm not going to say any more on that, but now you know where I stand on the Second Amendment. But the line of reasoning was the same back then that it is now. The government told commoners in Japan that they didn't need to have the good weapons because they would protect them. And I'm not trying to be mean here at all, but in feudal Japan, it was illegal for peasants to own or even have in their possession the katana, the Japanese longsword, or the naginata, which was basically a sword on a stick. You could still have a stick, you just couldn't have the sword part. Okay? And when they said, don't worry though, we're from the federal government, we're here to protect you. And no matter how well intentioned they weren't always there and not there on time. My favorite thing anyone has ever sent me on Facebook was a little meme that said, remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. And it's true. So people still had to be able to protect themselves. So what the commoners, and forgive me for using these terms, there are other terms that are less complimentary and some that are probably better, but I just want to make sure we're clear here. The non-nobility still needed to be able to protect themselves. So what they did is they took household items, in most cases farm implements, and adapted them to self-defense use. Some of these worked really well, some of them didn't. Okay, this lecture is also known as non-traditional weapons of feudal Japan. If we have anybody who trains in kabuto weaponry, some of the weapons we're going to talk about today are going to be familiar to you. And if we hit on one of the weapons that you really like, and I don't like it very much, please don't get mad at me. I'm approaching this purely as this is an effective weapon, a good tool for self-defense, and this, while it was attractive and looks really cool because it's shiny, was not as good in a life or death situation. And if it comes down to it too much, please remember I also teach this stuff for a living, and some things, if your life depends on it, are great, and some things work really well. to discourage your roommate when he's stealing the Rice Krispies. Okay, and that's not normally life or death, unless that's the only food left and the apocalypse has happened. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about, we're going to start our lecture with the Ninja Turtles. Because I love the Ninja Turtles, and actually my Japanese instructor was in the Ninja Turtle movies. Do you remember the old ones?
Yeah.
Early 90s stuff?
Yeah.
My instructor was in the first 2 movies. Do you remember Shredder's henchman, Tatsu?
Yeah.
Burly guy that didn't speak, except second movie he had like one line. Our father, gone! I Tatsu, now lead.
Yeah.
Took him months to get that right. That's my instructor. You know, the guy Casey Jones beat up with a golf club?
Oh.
He loves me introducing him around the country as the guy Casey Jones beat up with a golf club. But as long as we're talking Ninja Turtles, though, let's talk about Raphael.
Is he your favorite?
He's my favorite. He's actually my wife's favorite, but I don't like to encourage that behavior in her. If you remember the first movie, Raphael had one line for the first 45 minutes of the movie. All he did is walk around angry and go, damn! Great. I swear, and that's what echoes. Somewhere up front, the conchair is going, did you really say that? But it was in the movie, and I took my kids to the movie because I thought, you know, it's Ninja Turtles. We watch the cartoons all the time, and my instructor's in them. It must be safe. So we watch the movies, and when the movie gets out, we go out into the lobby, and there's a line of parents with their kids waiting to get in to go see this movie. And here's my son. He's got 2 straws from the sodas that the 4 of us got and shared. He's got 2 straws. Right in the middle of the big crowd goes, damn! And then walks off, and I'm standing there tearing up my Father of the Year acceptance speech. Well, Raphael's weapon was the sai. This is a really cool looking weapon. It's shiny, it's pointy, it looks like kind of a BA dagger. See, I'll only use certain swear words. And I know it's okay to say the other word too, it's in the Bible and everything, but I said the D word twice and it echoed, so somewhere to get back to my mom. This was actually originally, it was an agricultural tool. This is gonna sound really dumb, but do we have anybody that knows anything about Japanese agriculture? What's their main product?
Rice.
Rice. Have you ever seen a rice field? Is it dry like a cornfield or soybeans? A rice field is, they call it a rice paddy. It is 4 inches of water over about 4 inches of mud. And so when you plant rice, nowadays they do it a little bit better. But in the 16th century, when they planted rice, Japanese farmers were so poor because everything they raised got turned into the nobility, who then gave them some back. They actually planted rice seeds individually. If you've ever planted anything, you already know if you just take seeds and throw them out on stagnant water, plants do not grow. What you have, they just rot. And what you've done is you've left birdseed out. And that's it. So what Japanese farmers did is they took the tool and they actually put the rice seed through the water, into the mud, down until the tines hit, because that meant they pushed it down deep enough that the ground was dry enough and yet still got what? That it would grow. The seeds would germinate. And they planted individually. And there's actually, you can plant different colors of rice. I don't know if anybody's seen online, you can Google the different, they take aerial pictures of these rice fields that have these amazing designs because they'll do green rice and red and blue and make really cool things. That's because it get planted. This is your job, farmer. 1, 2, I sense carpal tunnel coming on early. That job sucks. But this is a really cool weapon on TV, in the movies. If anybody saw Daredevil, the movie, you remember Elektra? I do. Ridiculously hot woman in black and red leather, doing these, spinning around, cutting through sandbags and stuff with Evanescence screaming in the background, which is the best way to listen to. And she's going, flah, and turning and cutting a sandbag in half. Not to ruin your fantasy, because she's still really attractive, but the side part and cutting the sandbag in half, this is not because this is the special needs version, just safe for me. They're not sharp. They didn't need to be razor sharp on the sides in order to plant seeds. Okay? So they didn't cut, and they're not balanced very well. If you've actually trained with one of these or seen people use them, notice I've been holding it like this, and that's because it's not balanced correctly for a dagger. It's designed to be held this way and pushed into the ground. It doesn't feel right in your hands like this. It just doesn't. So when you watch people doing forms, they'll do it this way or this way. But the sword vendors, the weapons vendors, advertise the sai as a sword breaker. The idea is, samurai comes at you, swings a sword at your face, and when they swing this 30-inch razor-sharp piece of steel, you're supposed to reach out and catch it with a tuning fork. I'm guessing that wasn't tried more than once. And just to be clear, we've used our $150 stage blades, which are considerably cheaper and more poorly made than our $8,000 cutting sword. That's the one I brought this weekend. I have better ones. But we've taken that, locked the blade out, and went, and done everything we could to snap that sword blade, and it doesn't work. It's not really a sword breaker. Looks really cool. It was even in the Mummy movies. Didn't realize this was also an Egyptian weapon.
Yeah.
But it is.
Third movie.
Second movie, too.
Second?
Oh, yeah. Nefertiti, when they were fighting,
Oh, yeah, it
because
was the second
somehow
one.
Rachel Weisz was originally an
Yeah, the
Egyptian.
sister or
Anyway,
something,
don't over-examine the plot. It was a fun action movie, and Rachel Weisz was cute, too. Not Jennifer Garner in black leather cute, but she was, anyway. This is why I watch movies. Bad martial arts scenes and really attractive, and things have to blow up. If you have those three things, you've got a great movie for me. They're not sharp. They weren't balanced very well. And if you are going to use them to catch swords, and the only way you can hold on to them is like this is the wrong way to catch a sword blade. Because you do that once, twice, and after the fourth time, you're back to special needs. Because you can't hold on to it. They weren't balanced right for combat. They weren't sharp. You were better off just to simply use a knife. The blade wasn't quite as long, but it was sharp, and it did let you do other things than just stab. Because this did have some utility. I mean, look, it's a 12-inch spike. If you put that in someone's eye socket and take it all the way in to here, because that's where the tines stop it, pretty good odds you've stopped your attacker.
Yeah, it goes to
Must
your
have
brain.
gone. I moved away before I said that because I didn't want you to. As soon as she explains it to you, you're going to be mad at me. See how brave I am when I'm armed and I'm not sure they are?
Just explain it's not a very good weapon, so, you know.
And it's not. It is a fun weapon, and they're cool to use, but when you watch people doing forms with them, back to Jennifer Garner in Daredevil, she was punching and kicking, and a lot of times she'd take them and she would stab this way, and then she would turn and reverse the blade and strike this way, because somehow reversing the part of the weapon you're supposed to use to hit with the handle is tactically sound. I mean, that tells you how effective it was as a weapon. No one takes a loaded handgun and turns it around so they can hit somebody with the butt end. Especially if it's a cheap gun and you have it loaded, and that means the barrel's pointed back at you. That's the wrong time to find out this particular brand will slam fire. That means if you drop it, it goes off. Whack! Boom.
Oh.
Better luck in your next life. But the sai, it was really popular in movies. Not so much as a self-defense weapon. But since we started with the Ninja Turtles theme, let's move on to Michelangelo. And another weapon. This is the nunchaku. Nunchucks. Also known as the YouTube weapon of infamy. Because there are videos everywhere of people using nunchaku, usually poorly. Because it's always an accident, and it's usually one of three things. Okay, first, when they're doing the nunchaku routines, and they're holding them, and they're swinging them around, what you have is the guy who ends up hitting himself in the head. Because he goes, wah! And instead of catching it over the other shoulder and putting it under tension so you can strike with it again, they get out of control from here and they let go at the top, they bring it this way, and the flex point comes around and smacks them in the head. And this is where you know right away that despite the science behind the speed and velocity of the weapon hitting, it is not the death-dealing tool that the ninja movies make out to be, because the kid who hits himself in the head full force does not die. You know that because they're still filming. He falls to the ground and the camera's shaking because it was his best friend recording. And he's still filming, but he's laughing. It's shaking, and the guy gets up and goes, oh, dude, that sucked. And it should. This was originally, it was another farming tool. It was used to thresh wheat. When you harvest wheat has basically two components. It has the part that has nutritional value and that you cook with to make, if you're Japanese, you're making soba noodles. For us, we make bread and other things out of it, but you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's just the dry stalks, the crap stuff that has no nutritional value. So what they did is they spread it out on top of a cloth, and they would take 2 sticks, tie them together with what used to be just a leather cord. These are modern martial art ones, so they're on a chain with ball bearing swivels, and so they're really fast. But you would strike the wheat this way, over and over, to break it up, and then you'd have at least 2 people. We'd take the sheet and throw it up, hold on to the corners, otherwise bad things happen. But up, and then the chaff would float away and land outside of the cloth, and the wheat product would land on it because it was heavier, and that's how you would separate it and be able to use the wheat. And this came about when you were swinging it, going, hey, you know what, I'll bet I could smack somebody with that. I'm guessing it happened by accident, and it probably involved siblings who were supposed to be working, because that's how every great invention at our house was discovered. It was me and my brother doing things we weren't supposed to, power tools. But the neat thing about this is, by having 2 sticks that are separated by flexible, whether it's a cord or a chain, they've determined that you keep this under pressure, so when you let go, it goes flying out there. Once this is in motion, you can actually get this end moving in speeds of excess of 140 miles an hour. Now, if you have trained with these, a lot of times instructors will put a band of silver tape around the end. It's called retina retention tape. Retina is a part of that. And the reason for that is it makes it shiny, so it's easier to see it when it moves. Kind of like the glow stick, the sparklers on the 4th of July where you can draw letters and stuff. And so if we're doing things with these and not actually sparring for contact, but doing things at each other, if your eyes get used to tracking the end of this moving at 140, human fist, if you're a good lightweight boxer, just throwing a jab out there and bringing it back, they've clocked that and figured out that the jab moves at about 52 miles an hour. Which is just barely 1/3 of how fast this is moving. So if you get used to how fast this is moving, when we're sparring and I go to throw that jab at you, you're like in the Matrix. It's like that thing's going slow, and you just wait and bat it aside and go, what? Doink. And hit me in the eyes and knock me out. But this would move really fast. 140 miles an hour is cooking. And you can put a lot of force behind it. But not, did anybody see Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee? Do you remember he's in the cave and he's got this super lightweight pair of nunchaku that just look like 2 reeds with a cord? And he's got all these Asian guys flying at him and he's going, hoo-ah, ata, hoo-ah, and the guys are getting hit and flying against the walls of the cave because he's hitting them with the nunchaku and it is throwing 120-pound men clear across the room. It's not really how this works. And when people figure that out, they lose interest in the nunchaku as a weapon. But this is actually a very effective close and medium range weapon for self-defense. Not against swords, okay, just so we're clear. A 30-inch blade, razor sharp steel, and I have a stick, 2 sticks with a leather cord holding it together, and I go, wah! And he goes, whoop, and cuts the end off. I'm left with a stick with a little cord hanging down and going, yay, go me. It didn't work very well. But when I say these were effective, can I borrow you for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, come up here. I'm going to give you this.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, come stand right there. Okay. These are actually illegal in the state of Texas for law enforcement. Civilians can own them. But for law enforcement, you are not allowed to have these. Don't think about it. This is Texas we're talking about. You can get a carry permit for a bazooka. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but there is an RPG, and we're an AnimeCon, I need to explain this. RPG in this case does not mean role-playing game. It means rocket-propelled grenade. Some of those are legal, but you can't use these for law enforcement, and this is why. Bad guy with a knife. We're gonna go slow so nothing bad happens. Put your right foot in front, and point the knife at me. There you go. 80% of knife attacks here. Very seldom to the face, it's too easy to miss. Rather than holding the weapon like this and going, blah, and trying to hit him, because not a lot of reach with this. The reason why they're illegal is the way they were actually used for self-defense. You didn't hold them this way, you held them this way. Like you're in a guard position for kickboxing, bring them down closer to your body just a little bit. And rather than having you lunge and attack, since I have no idea who you are, I'll just have you hold still. You're going to be my token dummy.
Got it.
I mean, mannequin. Bad guy attacks with a knife, and you use these to block, not on the blade, but right here, and wrap. Now, so you know, the forearm is comprised of two bones, the radius and ulna, and they are not designed to meet in the middle. But I'd like to introduce you, I know it's a Japanese lecture, but I'd like to introduce you to a French term. It's called tourniquet. And what I've just done is wrapped a chain around his radius and ulna, and I have two levers. With a little bit of pressure here, I can actually improve on nature's design, and the radius and ulna will meet in the middle, or at least parts of them will. This is a really nasty weapon with leverage to come around and go snap, which also does the great thing of disarming him. And if you can't catch that, to wrap it around, because you notice how close that brings it to my arm, I don't want to get cut. You can go here and follow his arm up, ramp. If we have anybody that takes modern Aikido, an entering throw is called a riminage. It looks like a clothesline. This comes up and it turns over and tips them over so they land on their back. It's done in motion, so it's not a clothesline, but as he's moving forwards, I stop his shoulders from continuing, so his hips move out from under his shoulder, so he basically tabletops himself. Doesn't always work though. You get somebody big and strong, and you don't always have the right leverage. Now you do, because I have a chain around his neck and two handles, and I'm going to throw him over and spike him head first on the concrete under this carpet. I like it. Really nasty. They're illegal for law enforcement in Texas because of the lawsuits. Because of how dangerous it is for arms and legs. If we have anybody that does Taekwondo and say, well, that wouldn't affect me, I kick. I know. And that really cool side kick that you pull and that streaks out and you go right behind the heel and wrap it around the foot and go snap. That's an ankle break that's not going to heal. Okay, and the first technique you learn in Taekwondo is not the side kick, it's a front snap kick. Where you're going this way, it comes forwards. The way to defend that with the nunchaku is to stay here and stay a little bit low. Remember I said the hands were here, not here? When that kick comes in, this catches under the heel just enough to pass it above your head and off to your shoulder, here, and then this loops over the top, comes down on their knee, and you shelf their foot on your shoulder. So you have their knee right here, their foot right there, and then you're going to yank downwards and stand up at the same time. Fight's over, we're closed. Thanks for coming. Be sure to tip your waitress. Okay, these are really nasty things for close quarters and medium range combat. Like I said, it doesn't work well against a sword. It works against a knife blade as long as the blade is short enough that you can get past it. But you have to be careful using it. Do you remember those 3 videos that we mentioned about YouTube? We talked about the first one, guy hitting himself in the head, because if you are going to strike with him, you keep him under tension. If you let go with the top hand, you can hit him under the chin. But you have to be careful so you don't hit yourself in the head. The second one is when you let go in the bottom, and you swing. If you swing and miss, you want to bring it back, and you tuck it underneath. See how I missed? It goes here, here, and then comes underneath. Your elbow flares out to give it a nice, safe pocket, and then you pinch down on it so you keep it under tension. So again, you can do other things with the other hand, like this. Now I have both toys. And you can still strike forwards. Good thing the rivets are in place, huh? If you don't flare the elbow correctly, when you're bringing that around and down to catch it, if you keep your arm in close and just try to tuck it, this is injury number 2. This comes up. And a wooden stick traveling at 140 miles an hour, impacting right here, as soon as it hits right there, you realize it is misnamed. There is nothing funny about that bone. Because what happens is that goes immediately, when it gets hit hard, your entire forearm and your hand go numb, and you have now created a projectile weapon. And this happens in my school more than any of the other nunchaku-based injuries. Is people are going whack and hitting it and then having them go this way, and people are going 4! The third one is the one that everybody thought of at first, because it's always a teenage boy. And when you're swinging these, you don't want to, in a life or death situation, you don't want to swing it and just let it stop. Because everybody knows a limp weapon is not very good. I can't believe the things I say sometimes. So what happens is you want to keep it going, so you use your own body to rebound it and have it come back. And so when you watch videos, you see the guy who brings it forwards, down against his leg, and brings it back, forwards and down, and then recoil, forwards and down. And once you watch, you see how my foot is actually pointed straight towards this chair? I would have lined it up down the middle, but this lets me swing this right at Sean. My foot is pointed straight in front of me, and my knee is actually lined up with my foot. Watch what my knee does. I know it's camouflage, but it doesn't match the back. Watch what my knee does when this does the recoil thing. Forwards, down, bring it back. Forwards, down, bring it back. You see how my knee turns to the outside? That gives me an easy angle change. So when this comes down, my arm doesn't have to move very much. My leg moves for me, and this is a very controlled motion. If you keep your leg straight, in order to get that to go against your leg, you have to bring your elbow out. See how my shoulder turned? If it's one stick, that's okay. But this is a flexible weapon. When you bring this end out, this end does not go down, it goes around. So if you do this and bring your elbow out, this comes around and hits somewhere it's not supposed to. So when you're practicing with your nunchucks, nunchaku master, please make sure that you turn the knee to the outside. If you do this wrong and rack yourself and can no longer have children, after I've warned you, we're going to consider that natural selection. And maybe survival of the fittest, and it's best that you don't reproduce and pass this on, okay? Good weapon for hand-to-hand and short weapons like a knife. Another farm tool. Not my favorite, though. I know I like Michelangelo, but this would be my favorite. This is a comma. It's a hand side. These are familiar. Anybody who does gardening stuff knows these. You can still buy these at Walmart for $10.88, $9.88 if you find that price is falling sign.
Correct.
But when you get that $10 one at Walmart, what you're getting is basically a balsa wood stick with a little metal cap stuck on the end with a blade that sticks off of it. It's not very sturdy, and if you take that out to the garden and you use it for the reason it was intended for digging in the dirt, cutting out weeds, and breaking up clumps of clay and stuff, if you use that for the reason it was intended, you're going to break it in half an hour. 10 minutes if you hate gardening and we're trying to go fast. Because it just wasn't intended for contact. And it will lead you to believe that the comma was not a very good weapon for self-defense because it's going to break every time you hit something. Do you remember at the beginning of this lecture, among all the other stupid things I said Japan was a caste system? The samurai had the katana, and they would actually pass their blades down generation to generation. You had your family ancestral blade. Farmers did the same thing. Their tools were designed to last not just a lifetime, but several generations. And the comma was no exception. This was a solid piece of steel that came back, made a right angle, and came down. They put wooden handles on and used 2 pins to hold the wooden handles in place. But this was a very strong, solid piece of equipment. You can tell by this one's actually differentially heat treated. If you came to the sword lectures, the wavy line, that temper line that we had. You notice this one actually has a temper line on it. It's differentially heat treated to hold the edge. And you can actually do tameshigiri, that's test cutting with this. If you have the angle right, you can go right through cutting mats. And if people throw them at you, you can play collector birdie and go doink, doink, and just stack them on there. This weapon will actually penetrate the human skull. And I know you've all watched the same horror movies I have. There's always, at some point, there's the bimbo running through the woods. Doesn't matter if it takes place in New York City. She's still going to run through the woods. And she is running through the woods in slow motion towards the camera with her blouse coming open. Told you I watch these movies for a reason. It doesn't matter if she's an Olympic athlete. At some point, she's going to trip and fall down over nothing. And even though she's been running for 5 minutes towards the camera, and the bad guy with the hockey mask is walking like this, as soon as she falls down, he is right there. I used to say, I have no idea how that happened, and my wife smarted off once and said, well, duh, you said she was running in slow motion. But while she's laying there on the ground going, no, no, ah! The bad guy reaches out and takes a spork from KFC and goes, doink, and sticks it in her skull. And you're like, all right, that's it. I can't watch this movie. That's not real. You can't penetrate the human skull like that. Because up until then, the movie was totally believable. But you can't penetrate the human skull that easily. Sometimes you can. You just need the right weapon. And because of the way, you see how this draws closer? This angle, it also does it this way. It comes forwards. And because of the physics behind the motion, not a lot of shoulder, but elbow and wrist, if you combine that in the right way, looks like a bird attacking, doesn't it? It will actually generate enough force with the angle to penetrate the human skull, and you can practice this. I'm not advocating removing homeless people. Sorry, that was a purge joke. You practice with coconuts. Sounds weird, but you can take a table, you can put a coconut on it, and if you do it right, you will not only go through the top of the coconut, but you'll go in all the way to the bottom of the coconut, through the bottom, and embed the tip of this in your wife's wooden table. But I have to warn you, if you do it wrong, the comma is sharp on the inside, not on this part. And see how it curves right there? If you get your angle wrong and do the wrist too early, when you bring that down, you're going to hit the coconut with this part. You're very brave. And you hit the coconut like this, and again, boom, you have made a coconut cannon. And I did this in our backyard with my son. We weren't trying to, but I managed to put a coconut into our kitchen window. And by into, I mean through, it was closed. But in my defense, our yard behind us is a street where cars drive, and there is no insurance company in the world that's paying off on a shattered windshield because someone hit it with a coconut. I mean, unless you can prove it was an African or European swallow, that coconut thing. You guys got the Monty Python reference? You just laugh anyway because I'm completely off my meds. The truth is I'm not off my meds. I'm taking my meds. Not only am I taking my meds, I'm taking Kristen's too. And I'm pretty sure Red Bull and birth control weren't supposed to mix. It didn't occur to me that road's back there, so I'm going this way. So if it does screw up, it'll just hit the side of the house. I hit the window. And after it happened, and I was explaining to my wife that really it was for the safety of our neighborhood that I did this, she said, it didn't occur to you to turn the table sideways? There's a cornfield over there. I'm like, well, I was worried about angle chain thing. And she's like, you're an idiot. And it's true, I am. These were horrific, nasty close quarters fighting weapons. Are you recording this, or can I borrow you?
I'm just taking pictures.
Oh, good. Come up here. I'll have a picture that somebody can send it to you. Stand right here. Face them, and then just don't move. You're perfect. Using this weapon in combat, bad guy would attack. You could go, wah, and stick it in their skull, but because we've demonstrated, it does work. But the human skull is sometimes really hard, And you don't want it to glance off. So normally for combat, you move past the weapon and you would strike. Instead of aiming for the skull, you're actually going right here, just inside the collarbone, down into the chest cavity. I don't want to be too graphic, but I would like to point out the length of this blade. This is where his collarbone is. See? Into his heart. And, well, just so we're clear here, they would also use these in pairs. So you would have one forehand to block and one reverse grip. Not to hide it so you can't tell, because I've got something, and obviously I've already got one in the other hand. I guess I don't. Obviously I have one in the other hand too. But you could block and then go this way. So you would strike with this and it would go, remember, hold still. The doctor said that, and now you look like this. Through the underside of the jaw, into the soft palate, and that deep.
Whoa.
Yeah. Unless he's the scarecrow, he's dead. And just in case, most people in knife combat and close quarters weapons, the first thing you learn is to tuck your chin, because you don't, this is bad. Okay, you can't say, it's only a flesh wound. Not here. So you tuck the chin. So what comma fighters learned to do was to make that block and bring their hand forward slightly like they're punching, and then spring it out and up. And you're aiming right where his badge was. Right under the sternum, in and up. Still reaches. Ladies, they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Sometimes it is. These are wonderful. And when we train with these, you already saw the duck version. Doesn't look near as devastating, does it? But this is what we practice with, so you can work on hooking here, and the second one goes right at the tricep. If anybody's good tricep development, you're hooking that right there. So it cuts to the bone, and then you rake down. Does anybody remember Terminator 2? Remember when Arnold peeled off his arm to show he was a cyborg? And you always wondered how you could do that? I know how to do that. I have no idea. You're on your own putting it back on. But there was these were vicious weapons. The downside to the comma is that they weren't actually very good for distance. If somebody had a bow staff where they had both hands on the stick and they were trying to attack you, these weren't great because you could block and then just slide your hand down the blade. Because you know what? He's going to move his fingers off or I will. And they won't be attached to his hands anymore. But against a sword, these were really short, and against people on horseback, they didn't work at all. And you've seen these with a chain on them. In all the ninja movies, wasn't actually used by the ninja for being on foot. If he has a sword and he's on foot and I'm going, whoa, and throw it, if I miss, he just steps in and cuts my head off. These were used by farmers to protect their homes. When robbers, brigands would come in on horseback and you couldn't reach them very well, they would tie a cord. If you look at these, see that little loop on the bottom? You would attach a cord there, and the way you worked it was, weighted end of the chain here, over, and then throw it. You're not trying to hit him, because remember, don't move. This part's not sharp. This part is. This part's not sharp. What you did is you aimed it past them. You threw it over their head, and as soon as it went here, you were holding that weighted end, you would step back and yank down on the chain like this. So this would go here and then come forwards. The goal was to try to hook this behind the scapula and pull them off the horse. So farmer pulls them off the horse, the wife and kids come running out and go, damn! And the farmer takes the horse back to the barn. And that's, thank you, you were awesome. You didn't even flinch. I'm not sure you're awake. That or he was just scared enough he didn't move.
Well, he said not to move.
And you actually did what I said? Kristen? Pay attention, this guy actually does what he's told. That's my helper making faces at me. You guys have been absolutely awesome. I have more weapons, but I talk too much. And oh, you said you know. I thought you said no, you don't. I'm like, oh, you're so sweet of it. People are laughing at me. That wasn't a compliment. So there are more weapons. You know what that means? That means next year we have to have Ninja Weapons of Death 2. It's kind of like Children of the Corn. That's what everybody thinks of with the comma. Whether you've seen the original Children of the Corn or not, because it came out before most of you were born. But that's the cover, is some upraised hand with the moon and the first time I watched it, I don't even remember them using one of those in the movie. I'm like, you know what? That's false advertising. I waited so long for this movie to use that nasty one, and they didn't even use it. I rewatched it on God bless Netflix. Because that movie is on there, and I watched the original again and went, oh my God, that's a lot bloodier than I remember it. And they used the comma! They killed somebody and hacked them up, and there was blood. It was awesome. That has nothing to do with this lecture. Or the end. You guys are awesome. Are you guys ready for closing ceremonies? Yeah! Are you guys ready for this convention to end? Yeah! All right, the bad part is there were too many of you that were cheering for that. Look, the reason why we're all still here is we don't want it to end. We don't want it to go, how many of you want to go back to your day-to-day life on Monday? Liar, put your hand up. Well, yeah, sleeping at a convention is for the weak.